Hello, everyone. I'm John Raffis, and welcome to a special studio broadcast. Chances are you've been jamming on all the content that was dropped with our Season 1 Reloaded update. Well, good news. You ain't seen nothing yet. This week, Season 2 arrives and delivers new Cold War zombies and multiplayer experiences, features new Warzone updates, new operators, new free weapons, new Battle Pass content, and more. Today, we're going to connect with the members of the Treyarch and Raven development teams to talk about all things Season 2, and it's going to start with the storylines driving the action. Earlier, we were able to catch up with Treyarch's Miles Leslie as well as Raven's Ryan Burnett, and this is what they had to share.
"1984, and the Vodnoy ship has just left Rebirth Island with some precious cargo. Unfortunately for the captain and his crew, it'll never reach its final destination. It'll be gone, lost at sea for 37 years, until one day it appears, crashing into Verdansk. What it brought with it? Well, some new friends."
Good. Make them believe we care about the Nova 6 supply lines.
Let's talk about where the Black Ops story is heading across Warzone and Cold War in Season 2 and all the awesome content that comes with it. Last we left our operators in Season 1, Adler was taken, captured by Stitch. The team's going to need some reinforcements to help him, so Woods and crew enlist the help of Terrell Wolf. Now, Wolf is the ultimate hunter. He can stalk any prey and find him, so he's the perfect man for the job to help find Adler and the Nova 6 threat. This leads them to the jungles of Laos, where they believe that Adler's being held. And you're going to need someone else that knows the jungle, another guy. That's where Carla Rivas comes in. She knows firsthand with these cartels that run through the jungles and Perseus and what they've done, and she wants to take them out. She's got her own personal agenda, and she also knows that she's got to find Adler and shut this down. Now, they are going into the backyard of Naga. Now, Naga is a Perseus commander. He works under Stitch, and he is a deadly predator. This guy knows the jungle like the back of his hand. So the team is going to be really up against it when they face Naga.
So we have this new location at the launch of Season 2. It's right between the Gulag and the port. It's a location that is close quarters, it's tight, there's multiple elevations, you need to keep your head on a swivel, but hopefully you go there, you get those rewards and get out. We also have something that we've teased since the beginning of Verdansk. We're finally opening them up to the users to allow them go in there and explore, start to unravel some of the story, some of the mystery around this island. So we're finally opening up these areas and we're excited to see what fans do with it. Coming launch week is a brand new limited time mode that we have that's called Resurgence Extreme. What makes it so extreme is that we're more than doubling the number of players that come into the map here. You thought that playing Resurgence was action-packed, high combat before. Wait till you have twice as many people in there. It's really incredible. You're going to be in combat pretty consistently. There's no hiding out. There's no place that's safe there. So another game mode that we have in season is called Exfiltration. So what's really cool about this is we've implemented an alternate way to win the game. So rather than just take out all the enemies and your combatants there, if you find this radio and you hold on to it for a certain amount of time, you can call in an exfil, win the game, and get out of the map before everyone else. We have so many things planned throughout this season here. It's going to culminate in an amazing experience towards the end of the season.
Now, when you talk about amazing experiences in Season 2, it's impossible not to talk about zombies as well. So, here to talk about all things undead, including Outbreak, are members of the Zombies team, Corky, Kevin, Craig. Gentlemen, welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
All right, there we go.
Hi, John.
You guys. Craig, we're going to kick things off with you. Season 2 sees a continuation of the Dark Ether storyline. If you could, bring us along on the journey from Season 1 to where we find ourselves now in Season 2.
Well, I think I said in one of the last streams that, D Machina really was kind of a story that was built on the past. The Requiem team finding out what had gone on during World War II and the experiments that have led to these dimensional breaches from the Dark Ether. And then when we moved into Firebase C, it was much more of a kind of current active situation with characters in the level. Obviously Ravenov and Dr. Peck, we all got to meet. And I think narratively, this really shows just the scale at which this Cold War arms race between Requiem and Omega is starting to boil over. We've teased a little bit about the Ural Mountains, and these large-scale breaches are going to be the kind of battleground for investigation and scientific experiments to make sure that Requiem do not fall even further behind Omega than they already have.
Well, whenever you talk about large scale, it seems like that really tees things up for the big experience this season, which is Outbreak, right? And Corky, maybe you could tell us a little bit more about what Outbreak is all about and what's in store.
I've been the creative director on zombies since World at War, and it's always come up every project like, hey, let's do an open world zombies. And I'm just really excited that for Cold War we had the opportunity to do this. You're able to complete objectives and build your power as you go.
I think it's important to say that this mode is an entirely new way to experience zombies. For the first time ever, you're in these massive spaces and you're moving through them. As opposed to zombies coming to you, you're moving and exploring and discovering things along the way, and you're encountering zombies and enemies. And what is driving you that entire time is completing these objectives that Requiem has sent you in there to finish. Along the way, you're going to encounter familiar enemies, but at the same time, some brand new enemies that we haven't seen in Cold War. The first is the Tempest, which is this electrical crystalline being that really plays to the strengths of this mode, because he tosses projectiles at you and warps around within the massive space. And then we also have the Krasny Soldat. We find ourselves constantly losing time when we're playing the game. We're just sitting there and having fun and exploring and driving and using jump pads to parachute.
I think the fact that Kevin mentioned driving, it just changes things. There's something very satisfying about plowing the vehicles into a horde of zombies and seeing them ragdoll out of the way. That's fun.
Tell us a little bit more about how Tier 4 and Tier 5 abilities kind of get unlocked and expand the gameplay.
With the Requiem advancements, we've been able to expand the powers of all of our skills. So there are now Tier 4 and 5, and you have to go discover and find 2 new types of crystals to unlock these, the refined and flawless. This has been an awesome opportunity to go and look at all the various skills, the content, the perks, the field upgrades, and find ways to strengthen them. For example, all the ammo mods, now they're Tier 4s, allow the ammo mod to affect specials. So what that means is now you could potentially brain rot a Mangler or a Tempest or even a Mimic.
That is the most exciting thing for me, is that brain rot and turning into Mimic and having them fight on your side for once, and a Mangler. It's really cool.
See, I thought Kevin was just listing off his nicknames for you and me, Corky.
Okay, Craig, over to you now. What are you most excited about?
I am neither refined nor flawless. But no, again, I was saying before, it really does continue the story. So we actually get to see our supporting cast, Dr. Strauss, Dr. Gray, and Major Carver. They've got objectives that need to be carried out. There's a narrative element that I think is kind of fun, because it is more of a military and scientific operation where you are undertaking these various tasks and experiments and objectives that are going to hopefully give Requiem a better insight into how they can use and potentially harness the powers of the Dark Ether, rather than just having to react to it.
Samantha Maxis makes an appearance this season as an operator. If you could tell us a little bit more about what that appearance is all about, how that works.
Maxis has been in the field, throughout the entirety of our Cold War story. And unfortunately on Firebase C, Dr. William Peck confessed to throwing her into the Dark Ether. And she's been in there for an indeterminate period of time, because we've already explained that time moves differently within the Dark Ether. So when she comes back, she's definitely changed. I think the first thing that people will definitely see is that her eyes look pretty cool. They have, elements of the Dark Ether within them, but Part of the ongoing story is going to be just a little bit about what has happened to her and what that would mean for the future. After the events of Firebase E, she's also going to become a playable operator, not just in zombies, but across our other modes as well. And I'm looking forward to that enormously, just because I know it has been requested.
Kevin, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about the Death Machine that should be coming along here in Season 2 as well.
I mean, this is a zombies classic. It makes its return this game to unleash devastation against the Horde. And it's going to be super useful to have this in some of these objectives and Outbreak, where they're in interior environments and you can't necessarily rely on the air-based support.
I know that in Season 2, the team begins introducing some new weapon skills, some specials, some launchers. What's in store for players on that front?
So as we kind of open up the play space and we've been adding more and more specials and elites, the special and launchers weapons will gain weapon skills that allow them to deal more damage to higher difficulty enemies, as well as like deal more damage to their armor. So now this is kind of a new option, is like, I want to bring a launcher or the crossbow around because it's actually very good at taking out the Megaton or the Krasny Soldat. So it adds a lot of value to those weapon classes. The newest field upgrade that we're going to be adding to the mode is Frenzy Guard. What it does is it draws the attention of all the zombies in the area, so they'll attack you. But as you power it up, it gives you all of these tools to deal with the entire Horde attacking you. So it's replenishing your armor, and eventually at its highest power, it's slowing all the zombies in the area. And it's extremely useful in objectives where you have a situation where potentially, a lot of zombies are attacking the defend console, and you just want to pull them all off and make sure that, you're going to be able to complete that objective.
Just out of curiosity, as the team has been playtesting Outbreak, what are you most interested in people being able to play themselves?
Someone on the team who shall remain nameless talked about a game they had last week and described it as the most intense, frightening experience they'd ever had in zombies, when they were trying to exfil after they felt they'd been doing great. But they described the experience of running up a hill, feeling that they were about to get out of there and everything was fine, and then were met with a advancing Horde on a scale that we don't really see in the kind of more room-based, corridor-based kind of typical round-based maps.
Guys, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
And that brings us to multiplayer, which means that we are joined by none other than Treyarch's Tony Flame and Matt Schrons to talk weapons, maps, and modes. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thanks, John. I'm super excited to talk to everybody about all the cool stuff we got coming. A lot of fun tools for everybody from the weapon side.
Well, good. Let's just capitalize on that excitement and jump right in. Let's talk about what's happening on the weapons front starting launch week. It sounds like that there's an AR and an SMG coming everybody's way.
That's how we're starting. We know people love assault rifles and SMGs. As you can see, we're hanging out in the jungle here, and that's going to be a little bit of a theme as we go through all the fun new toys that are coming out for Season 2. So the assault rifle that we have coming out launch week is called the Farah 83, and it's a really unique weapon system. It's intended to be a long-range assault rifle. It's going to have a good fire rate. It can cross over into the LMG category a little bit, what LMGs are good at holding a point. But of course, compared to an LMG, the Farah 83 is going to have much better handling speeds, faster ADS times, things like that. Now, the trade-off is, compared to other assault rifles, it is a little bit slower on the handling, and it has a little bit more recoil that you need to master for those long-term engagements. But once you get that recoil down, then you're going to be able to lock down long lanes with this assault rifle, as well as have the ability to go full auto and close range and medium range. So it's a great all-around weapon.
Tell us a bit more about the LC-10.
LC-10. So the LC-10 is really cool. It's a submachine gun that excels at long-range combat. And the way that it does that, primarily because it has an extremely fast fire rate, is that it has a higher muzzle velocity. So those SMG bullets you might notice when you use submachine guns, because they have that lower muzzle velocity, it takes time for bullets to travel downrange to hit distant targets. Well, the LC-10 has a higher muzzle velocity. So those bullets are going to travel faster, get to your targets quicker. You don't have to lead as much. Fictionally, this is a weapon that was designed by the same manufacturers as the LW3 Tundra. So we had a lot of fun making kind of a submachine gun version of that weapon.
Whenever you talk about sort of like a weapon that is inspired by sort of like a class or a type, what's it like collaborating with the weapons team to kind of like bring that to life? I have to imagine that the process is a lot different than sort of a historical weapon.
Well, we have just an incredible weapons art team here at Treyarch. So they're always looking to give each gun, a real identity. In this case, something that we made, but that still has its own place in the game. So because we had an established weapon with the Tundra, and it had of course, a manufacturer needs to make that weapon. Manufacturer's not just going to make one weapon. So we're always looking for the story behind each gun. And each weapon is its own unique story. And it's important for it to have that individual identity.
Well, when it comes to telling stories or weapons telling stories, what kind of story would the Shadowhunter tell us?
The R1 Shadowhunter is our 1980s version of the crossbow. So you might recognize that name as a predecessor for what would later become the Shadowclaw crossbow in Black Ops 3. This is where it started with the R1 Shadowhunter. This is a crossbow that's perfect for the jungle. It's going to be stealth. It's going to be quiet, manually operated. You can retrieve your blades. And these are projectile blades that are going to kill directly on impact anywhere on the body. Now, to combat that, because it could be, something you get in one shot, we want to provide a counter for everything whenever we can. So if you have armor equipped, you will survive that hit. And this is just a classic storied weapon in Call of Duty history. And we have to make sure that we always have a crossbow in a Black Ops game.
Also coming in season is a new sniper rifle. It's the ZRG 20 millimeter, correct?
So the ZRG 20 millimeter, yes, it's in the name, 20 millimeter. It's a pretty massive ordnance to be firing, larger than any other sniper rifle in the game. So as you might imagine, this is the highest damage sniper rifle in Cold War. This is going to kill enemies anywhere above the waist. So you get that shot on target with this thing and it's good night. So this is pretty scary to put out a big sniper rifle like this that's this powerful. We have a lot of skilled snipers out there. So on the flip side, you're going to have to make sure that that shot counts. You're only going to get 3 shots in a magazine, which is how these rifles were actually manufactured. Those rounds are massive. So to carry around more than 3 in a magazine is just too heavy. So there's 3 rounds in a magazine, and the rechamber time is it takes longer than the other sniper rifles. So we'll be keeping a close eye on the balance after it comes out. But this thing is an absolute beast. It looks absolutely menacing in your hands, and it's going to sound menacing as well. We hope you enjoy this one.
Well, also in season, it sounds like the team is delivering some melee items, including a machete and an E-tool.
Of course, if we're going to the jungle, you have to have a machete. It's a necessity. Now, the machete has some unique melee properties. It has a long stab when you are getting an attack on an enemy. Now, the trade-off there is that it's slower to swing. So while much like the sniper rifle, while it's more powerful and has more range, you're going to want to make sure that you engage that melee attack at just the right time so that you don't have a missed attack that takes longer to re-engage. But other than that, the machete is perfect for the jungle and for getting those close encounters.
So, Tony, earlier the Zombies crew was talking about this new Scorestreak that's coming to season 2. If I'm not mistaken, we've got the Death Machine on the way.
Yeah, I think the 80s broke the record for most miniguns in movies of a decade. So, of course, we have to bring the Death Machine back. It's also a Black Ops staple, as many of our fans know. For some personality, we added an ammo can and a feed bag on the bottom, just to give it a little bit more heft and weight in first person, a little bit of a unique look. But it's going to feel as powerful and menacing as ever. Now, as a Scorestreak, for anyone that may not know this, when you're using a Scorestreak weapon, then any kills that you get will count towards your Scorestreak multiplier, and you'll continue to get more score for every next kill in that life. Of course, the trade-off there is if you die with the Scorestreak weapon in your hands, then you lose it. It's a high risk, high reward, super satisfying weapon to use. As the Death Machine, we have to get it right every single time, and I believe we've done so this time.
All right. Well, let's switch gears. Let's talk about maps and modes. Let's bring in Matt into the conversation. Matt, let's talk about some stuff that's available launch week, starting with a 6v6 experience, Apocalypse. What's going down?
Sure. Hi, John. Let's talk about Apocalypse. Fictionally, for Apocalypse, we're actually raiding Naga's stronghold, and we're trying to find that damn Adler, who's always up to his hijinks, and still trying to find out, trying to find some clues about the Nova 6 threat that seems to be continually looming. It's a 6v6 map, so it is on the smaller side, but there's a lot of different ways to find enemies and engage. There's some really interesting connectivity paths throughout the map. So you're going to be able to go through the really cool temples. You've got little candles set up and connecting paths to the center. You can barrel straight down the middle dirt road. And then you've got the huts. So the huts are up on stilts. You can kind of make your way through there, and it's a bit of a safer path. And then we've got some really interesting flank routes where there's been a chopper that's been downed. So you'll be able to flank through that chopper and hopefully get behind your enemy and get a nice advantage on them.
So if 6v6 scratches that sort of smaller map itch, it sounds like we've got a bigger experience, in fact, a 40-player experience coming later in the season.
We're going to Golova. So this is one that Outbreak players are going to see on season launch, and then our high player count players will be able to experience that later in the season. Fictionally, you're going to look at this map and say, oh, that's a nice little rural Russian mountain town. The story behind it's a little more dicey, where actually these soldiers are born and bred from birth to be trained killers. You're going to be moving through the Russian town. Some of the points of interest are going to be the neighborhood, which is where that density comes from. The train station, you're going to be, roaming around a church, and then there's a farm which kind of opens up. So the inside of the map is a bit more dense. You're going to be able to get in some closer range engagements than you may be accustomed to in our previous maps. But once you get kind of on the outskirts, that's where you may want to take one of those fancy new snipers and see if you can land a few shots. The importance for us was to create a very different type of gameplay than you may have seen in the maps like Ruka or Alpine or our previously released season 1 Sanatorium. Which, Sanatorium, just to speak on that, we saw a lot of positive sentiment on that. So that continue the feedback, because that does help us, that does inform us where we go next.
In season, it sounds like the team is also delivering 2 other map experiences, Mansion and Miami Strike. Tell us about those.
Mansion is actually based in Havana, Cuba. And it's based off of the Cold War campaign mission, End of the Line. You're going to start inside of the mansion, and you're going to be fighting your way towards each other through this kind of open middle room. So that middle room is going to be a little dangerous, but you're going to have an upper flank path that does require a mantle up. If you want to take the risk of mantling up there, you're going to get a good vantage point of the play space below. But it's a little dangerous to take that risk. So you're going to see that in Gunfight 2v2, Gunfight 3v3, Gunfight Snipers Only, Gunfight Blueprints, and Face Off. And then next up, you mentioned Miami Strike. Again, I mentioned feedback. So for Miami, we've made it bigger and darker. No, I'm kidding. We did the opposite of that. We took the feedback, and for Miami Strike, we've given it the Strike treatment, and we've cut it down into its own brand new map. The Strike version on Miami is going to be focused around the alley, that kind of location, and the garage. It plays completely different than the OG Miami, as I call it. In playtesting, I've been able to hold down a balcony on Paramore and just keep people from flanking through that alley. But we've also opened up some new paths. So I don't expect it to be a carve out of what you play in Miami today. And we feel like this is the right approach. So very excited about that one.
Matt, before we jump into new modes, I want to ask, Tony rattled through a number of new weapons. Which new weapon are you most excited to bring to which new map, and why?
I feel like a real badass when I pull out the death machine in Apocalypse. It's just, it's the perfect setting. That weapon is very near and dear to my heart, and I just feel like a badass.
You talked about the death machine being near and dear to your heart. One of the things near and dear to mine comes in the form of a mode available launch week that I think a few other people will be happy to see return, Gun Game.
Yes, sir. Gun Game is back. Like some of the weapons that Tony talked about, I don't think it would be a Black Ops game if we didn't have Gun Game in it. For people that may not have played it before, you're in for a treat. The core concept is everybody starts with the same weapon, which is going to be a pistol. There's going to be a total of 20 weapons. You're going to finish with a combat knife for the default gun game. And your goal is to get a kill with each weapon. As you get a kill, you'll switch to the next weapon. And the first player who can manage to eliminate an enemy with all 20 weapons will win the match. So yeah, that's what I'm really excited about. And we'll have some fun variants coming later on down the road for gun game.
Stockpile, new mode coming in season. What's in store?
Again, it's one of my favorites. One that we introduced, I believe, in Black Ops 3. Originally, it was called Fracture. Back then, the fiction was a bit different. We've grounded it just like our boots. And the goal for Stockpile is to kill enemies. When you eliminate an enemy, they will drop a small version of a dog tag. Unlike Kill Confirmed, your job is not done once you pick that dog tag up. You can pick up to 10 enemy dog tags and you will carry them on your person. Your goal is when you pick up those dog tags, you will see a deposit site. You need to make your way to that deposit site and stand in that deposit site. And you guessed it, deposit those dog tags into that site. For each dog tag that you deposit into the site, you will earn 1 point for your team towards the score limit. That's Stockpile. But I believe, around March 17th, which may be a holiday called St. Patrick's, we're going to have a themed St. Patrick's Stockpile. So you're not going to be picking up dog tags, you're going to be picking up clovers. And the deposit site may have a pot of gold with a rainbow coming out of it. So that's some fun stuff we like to do.
So last but not least, 40 player hardpoint coming in season. What else is there to say, Matt?
We're very excited about kind of in injecting some of that core multiplayer gameplay into that 40 player high player count gameplay. The rules are going to be a little different than normal hardpoint. 4 players on a team, 10 teams. You're going to drop into Ruka, Alpine, Sanatorium, and Golova. And when you first drop in, you're going to see 3 active hardpoints. For every player on your team that is on an active hardpoint, you will earn score. In Core 6v6 hardpoint, you're not going to gain more score for the more players that you have on it. 40 player hardpoint does make that rule change. So it brings about some interesting tactics and nuance to it. That's a big point difference. Another big one is that there will never be a contested state. You will know when enemy players are on the active hardpoint, but you also got to keep in mind that they're going to be earning score just like you are. So it's really important to recognize that the enemy players are on your hardpoint and then go and find them and get them off of there. Because again, it's all about racking up score and getting to that score limit.
Guys, thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. We'll see you again soon. For anyone wondering what else might lie in store for Season 2, feel free to check out the season roadmap. The roadmap and additional Season 2 information and blog content can be found at callofduty.com. There, you can also find information about Battle Pass integration, 100 tiers of new content starting with Naga. The Battle Pass system also features an arsenal of weapon blueprints that will light up the jungle, all unlockable as you progress from tiers 0 to 100. New operator skins, as well as new weapons like the FARA 83 assault rifle and the LC-10 SMG. For information about the latest game status updates, feel free to head to Treyarch's Trello page. Just one of the ways our community manager, Josh Torres, is working to help the studio keep players informed about the game. A big thank you to all of our spokespersons today that made the time to be with us. And thank you to the crew that made today possible: Tommy, Alan, Foxy, and Ben. Stay tuned to Treyarch and Call of Duty social channels for the latest about in-game activations. And in the meantime, have fun and enjoy everything that Season 2 has to offer.